This is an introduction to hybrid online learning. Before we start the program, I'd like you to take a moment and brainstorm some answers to these questions. What is your idea of online learning? So just take a moment and write down what you think online learning is. When you hear face-to-face learning, what do you think of? You can bullet point ideas, you can just write down a sentence, and then what is your idea of hybrid learning? Do you know what hybrid is? Do you have a definition? Is there an idea in your head? As we go through the training, this introduction as well as the live training, you should have a more clear definition of what the idea of hybrid learning is, what it looks like for the Elms College MBA program, and how we can accomplish this. Learner-centered teaching. Learner-centered teaching is a focus on course design that you focus on the learner, not the teacher. So try to think about while you're designing these activities, what will the learner do? What will be the learner's response? As you see with the pictures underneath teacher-centered learning, we have a professor up there with a microphone and a projector commanding the audience, teaching to the room. And on the learner-centered side, we have a person who made a cupcake, we have a person running a race, we have a teamwork putting a puzzle together. The idea is to create a learning environment where the student is doing, and it's not just the teacher lecturing. When we think about learning, we need to start thinking about Bloom's taxonomy of learning. Here is an evaluation. Here is a triangle of Bloom's taxonomy, and this also includes some Web 2.0 materials that go for each one, which we'll get into inside your learning sessions. But just to get an idea of this, the basic understanding, basics are remembering and understanding. Beyond that, we go into applying and analyzing. And then at the top of the triangle, it's evaluating and creating. You will learn in much more detail inside your sessions what these really mean and how does this work in an online hybrid environment, and how does this work for you? How do you design activities that go along with this? How do you reach the top levels of Bloom's taxonomy, evaluating and creating? We're working on course design here, so we're going to talk about the Addy method, or Addy. So ADDIE. This starts with analysis. So when I talk about analysis, we're talking about how the students will learn. What type of learning technologies are in there? What is the timeline in the MBA course that you're thinking of? And you can use this for any course, not just the MBA, but what is the student population? What are concepts that might be difficult? So it's an analysis of the student population and what we're going to do here. Next thing we talk about is design. So this is designing the course. This is creating learning objectives. We're creating ways to assess the students, whether they've met these learning objectives. We're going to separate face-to-face and online content, and we're going to find a way to connect that face-to-face and online content so that the learning really takes place for students in all aspects. Development. Development talks about you can leverage technology. We're going to talk a lot about different technologies, but remember, pedagogy is more important than technology when you're thinking about this. But when we talk about development, we talk about the logistics of group work and how we can create that in an online hybrid environment. What types of assessment we're going to use, and we need to think about, this isn't the traditional face-to-face class, and what does online hybrid mean? Implementation. This is the actual launch of the course, and of course, first time out, there's always things that happen. People make mistakes, but we want to talk about this. We want to be as prepared as possible, and then in the evaluation method, we seek to find a constant improvement and find implementation. It happened, and then we also, go to the evaluation side where we figure out, did it go well? What worked well? And closing the loop of information. So we're just going to watch this short video.
How to get a date using Addy. Addy is the most common and traditional method of designing new processes of teaching and instructing. It is a 5-step process that instructional designers use to analyze, design, develop, implement, and evaluate new ideas to make a learning process more smooth and productive. Today, we're going to teach you the Addy model by demonstrating how to get a date. In the Addy model, analysis is the first step. You must first figure out what the objectives are, who the target audience is, what the learning environment is, and set deadlines or timelines. You must also decide what the problems are that need to be fixed. This is Eugene. His objective is to ask someone out. His timeline? He needs a date by next weekend for the school dance. His learning environment is his campus. In the analysis process, he discovered a few problems that he needs to fix. Eugene figured out what his objective was and realized he needed to change his looks and a few habits before the school dance. Design is the second step of the Addy model. During the design phase, you set specific goals and create a strategy for accomplishing them. You also think of new ideas. With the help of a friend, Eugene is figuring out a strategy and trying out new ideas. Development is the phase where you gather and practice ideas that were made in the design phase. It is also the phase where you assemble everything. With the help of Eugene's friend, he is developing and practicing a new look. Step 4 is implementation. Implementation is when your designs and hard work are presented to the desired audience. In this phase, all the training and hard work are put to use. In the final phase, you provide opportunities for feedback from the users. Revisions are made if necessary. instructional design for whatever your needs may be.
So this MBA training can be twofold. You can learn about Addy course design and how to apply that to dating. But now we're going to talk about the 7 principles of effective learning. So when we talk about this, we talk about encouraging contact between students and faculty. Now, this doesn't just happen in an online environment. When we're talking about hybrid or students who attend webbing into the course, we're talking about encouraging contact, whether that be face-to-face contact, or whether that be contact online in a discussion forum, or whether that's contact through another way. There's all kinds of technologies. There's FaceTime, there's web conferencing, there's Adobe Connect. There's a million different ways that you can make contact. Just remember that you want to encourage contact between students and faculty. Use active learning techniques. Most of the students are working during the day, so imagine you're working all day long and you sit down and you're about to attend class for 3.5 hours and you are lectured at for 3.5 hours. At some point, you're about to check out. And so we want to encourage active learning techniques here. We want to give prompt feedback. This is extremely important. You have an 11-week course in the MBA program, and half of that is online. And so giving prompt feedback prior to the students doing the next assignment is extremely important and something we need to remember. And there are easy ways, and we'll talk about ways to give prompt feedback. But this is very important. It's not just a grade. It's how can I improve on this so that the next time I do it better. Develop cooperation among students. So several of these students will be working, many of the MBA programs are using group work, and I'm sure you'll probably use group work in your course, and developing cooperation among the students. Communicating high expectations. So you need to be able to communicate what you expect the students to do in this class and emphasize time on task. So I need to know when I sit down to do this, how much time should it really take me? You know, should it be 15 hours? Should it be an hour? Should it be 10 minutes, depending on what the activity is? So emphasize time and respect the diverse talents and ways of learning. Not everyone learns in a lecture format. Not everyone is a visual learner. Some people like audio. So if you use a mix of different ways to communicate and teach the students, then you'll be able to really get the diverse group of people that you have. So think about these as we move forward in our course design. So the 15 differences between online and face-to-face learning. So these are really important when we're thinking about potentially you have taught your class in an online format, or potentially you haven't taught your class in an online format and this is the first time designing. So, but most people have been in an online format, so in a face-to-face format, and so we need to think about how is it different? How is it different between online and face-to-face? The goals are the same. The students should obtain the same learning objectives, and they should be able to do this, but the delivery are sometimes different. So we need to create tasks that create a learning environment that happens online as well. So one of the differences is a variety of grading opportunities. So the variety of grading opportunities that you can do in this can be homework, quizzes, exams, case studies, writing assignments, group projects, movies, presentations. The list goes on and on and on. So what we want to try to do is when we think about the variety of grading opportunities is think about the Bloom's taxonomy and reaching those 2 higher levels, evaluating and creating. We also want application and analysis, but evaluating and creating, we want to reach those. The trust we need to have in students. I get this question all the time, and there are many things that we can do to make sure that the student is the person doing the learning online. But we also need to have trust, right? We can design things, but we need to have trust in students. The nature of student collaboration. So in an environment that's online, it's very different student collaboration than when we're in class, and you can say, okay, Johnny and Ellen, you're working together, and you can sit there and you can help facilitate the student interaction face to face. What happens in an online environment? So there are many things we'll talk about. That's Google Chat. There are chat rooms. There are social networks. There are wikis. There are assignments that create this, and there are ways for students to collaborate. Prezi, which I'm using a Prezi right now, I'm recording over it, but there are there are types of presentations where students can be online at multiple times and multiple students correcting the same thing. Google Documents. So there's many different ways, but when you're designing, think about the nature of student collaboration. Then we have the importance of student organization. The face-to-face students can meet at times that are scheduled, and that's ways to organize it. How do you organize this in an online environment? We'll be using Moodle, the learning management system, for the ELMS MBA. But what you need to remember is that you need to keep it organized. And we've put in some ways, and we have a template and things like that. But just remember, the person online needs to have the same idea of what's going to happen as a student face to face. So if you're able to say that in a way face to face, you need to then say that in a way online that the student understands, and that the course is structured in a way that a student doing this online can understand what is necessary, how the flow of information happens, and what the expectations are. Then we talk about student interaction with content. Students will spend as much time on the content as they need it, but not more. So remember, in an online environment, just like we do at work every day, or like I did when I was looking up this information, or anything else that we do, we'll go to the web. So the answers there are many different answers. So we will need to help facilitate that. I will go to Google and I will type in Addy, and I will type in Bloom's Taxonomy. And so just like in manufacturing, we do just-in-time student learning. So when the student needs to know the information, that is the moment that they will go look up the information, and not necessarily before that. The nature of faculty collaboration. So when we're talking about this, it's talking about there's many resources, and when you're in the training face to face, or if you attend the training after the fact online, there are many faculty members that you can collaborate. People who have talents in different areas, whether that be talent in technology and they're very good at designing presentations, or whether that be talent in pedagogy and talking about getting students to collaborate, or assessment and what is really needed. Just remember that there is a network of faculty, of course on campus, but beyond the campus. And in these online environments, it's actually very easy to communicate with people across the country, across the world, and get their feedback and solicit information and ask them questions. So remember to collaborate with the faculty on campus, with the faculty across the world. I can't stress the need for immediate feedback enough, and we all understand. I think it's very important that you put time frames around when you will give feedback or when you will answer emails. Be realistic, but be fair. Understand that the student is expecting to move on to the next activity. So if I turn in a paper, my first case assignment, and it's, let's say, 40% of my grade. I'm just making this up, but and there's 2 other case assignments that total for 40% of my grade. If I don't get back case assignment from week 2 until week 7, and I've already had another one due, then how can I really improve? That's kind of like you go to do something at work, and you're asked to do this task, then you're evaluated on it, you don't get the evaluation, you then have to go do the task in a different manner again, and there's no improvement that can happen from time 1 to 2 if you don't provide immediate feedback. The value of structure. So when we're talking about structure, it's not just structure, it's the value of structure in the course. So this is based on, like, what's the time plan? So be realistic, and you can have high expectations, but given a realistic idea of what is expected of the student and the time frame that it should take to complete this. This helps, and we're going to work on this, but creating clear learning objectives and defining a timeline and expectations and measurable results, that's how you can really create structure in your course. The role of office hours, and we will talk about this more as a group, but the role of office hours, how are you going to be able to help students? These are students who work during the day. One of the things that I've been able to do is have Adobe Connect sessions and online office hours. So what happens in an online environment when you're not a full-time faculty sitting at your desk in an office hour environment? How do you help students? How do you help students that live in Texas? And how do you help students that live in, Connecticut, or that have a family and they can only meet? So the role of office hours is different in an online environment than it is in a face-to-face environment. Dependence on professionals, and this can be professionals, the director of the MBA program, other faculty members, people with technology experience. So don't be afraid to ask questions, ask for help, and seek answers. The necessity of learning objectives. This is something that we're going to focus on in our live training session, but we're going to focus on interactive learning objectives and really create a place where the students, we define what is it that we want the students to be able to do and what should they know at the end of this course. The ease of assessment. I cannot tell you how much rubrics, I'm sure you all know, are such an important part of my assessment when I do this. So the ease of assessment, because if you make it extremely difficult or subjective, and then how do you grade it, and what if this person is better at this and you didn't clearly define it? So the ease of assessment. And then when we talk about redesign, so in that evaluation phase, when you're thinking about Addy, the evaluation phase is very important. And how, what if the students are not getting the learning objective in the way that you are trying to teach it? How do you evaluate that? How do you assess it? And how do you make a quick just in time? If you're on the manufacturing line and the product is coming down the line and in the step 7 of 10, there's a problem with the part, do you just continue to let it go till 10 and then the product is not what you want? Or do you assess what's happening in step 7 and then reevaluate, change the dynamic, fix 7, and then you can reach 10 in a positive manner? So these are just 15 differences that have been outlined. This came from the Magna Online Seminar, and this is something to think about. This is an introduction. We're going to talk about these again, but think about these when we're going to go into many of these in depth. But when you're designing your course and working on this in an online hybrid environment, we need to remember, all of these things. So that is your introduction to the hybrid online learning. And actually, if you follow the packet and the email that you got with information, you will now go online and complete an assessment, and you'll do a couple other activities related to watching this. And we will see you hopefully in my class. So, thank you very much.